The Encounter. The great hall of the alien palace was carved from black stone and glowing crystal. Tall pillars reached high, carrying banners of 1,000 victories. Alien guards with sharp armor stood in silence, their eyes cold and full of suspicion. At the end of the hall sat the alien queen, tall, elegant, with a crown that shimmered like fire. Her people called her untouchable, a ruler who feared nothing. But on this day, something disturbed her calm. The heavy doors opened with a low creak, and a human stepped inside. He walked slowly, his boots echoing against the crystal floor. His clothes were plain, his weapons hidden, but his presence was strange. He was not afraid. Every other being who entered here bowed, shook, or begged, but this human's eyes held no fear. He simply looked forward, steady, calm, as if he had walked into halls like this many times before. Whispers filled the air. Why is a human here? Does he not fear death? Kill him before he insults the queen. But the queen raised her hand. Silence fell again. Her golden eyes studied him. He looked ordinary, yet something about him pulled at her thoughts. Then it happened. From behind her throne, a young voice rang out. The queen's daughter, the princess, ran forward. Her silver hair fell loose as her small feet tapped against the stone. She should have stayed behind the guards, hidden in safety, but she ignored them all, her eyes locked only on the human. And then she spoke the words that froze the hall. "Father!" she cried, her voice filled with joy. Gasps echoed everywhere. Guards tightened their grips on their weapons. Nobles turned pale. The queen's eyes widened, as if struck by lightning. The princess ran to the human and clung to his arm, hugging him like she had found the one person she trusted most in the galaxy. The human stood still, his jaw tightening, but he did not push her. "Away!" His hand rested gently on her shoulder. The queen rose from her throne. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling in rage and confusion. "Why does my daughter call you father?" Her words struck every soul in the room. The human looked at her but did not answer immediately. His eyes, calm but heavy, studied the queen. The hall grew darker in the silence. Only the faint hum of the crystals filled the air. "Guards!" the queen commanded, her voice sharper now. "Seize him!" But before they could move, the princess screamed, wrapping herself tighter around the human's arm. "No, don't hurt him! He saved me!" The queen froze. Her daughter's voice carried desperation, not a trick, not a lie. The human's eyes met hers, and in that moment she felt something strange. Not fear, not rebellion, but a heavy truth hiding behind his silence. The guards hesitated. None dared strike while the princess shielded him. The nobles murmured in panic. The queen's heart pounded. She remembered the time when her daughter had vanished, those weeks during the border war, when no one knew where she was. Could this human have been the one? The queen's voice shook with both anger and fear. "Human," she said slowly, each word like stone. "If you speak lies, you die today. If you tell the truth, you still may not live. Now answer me. Why does she call you father?" The human lowered his eyes for a moment, as if weighing his words. The princess looked up at him, her small hand gripping his sleeve. "I do not seek your throne," the human said quietly, his voice calm but firm. "I do not seek war. Years ago, I found a child lost and alone. She was hungry, afraid. I gave her food. I gave her safety. I did what any human would do. That is all." His words echoed in the great hall, simple, plain, but they carried weight. The queen felt her chest tight. Then memories flooded her mind, her daughter's pale face when she was finally found, the way she clung to life as if someone had shielded her. The human's story matched too well. Still, she could not believe it. Could a human, one of the most underestimated species in the galaxy, be the reason her daughter still lived? Her hands curled into fists. Her empire could not know this. If her nobles spread the tale, her rule might weaken. They would call her bloodline tainted, her daughter bonded to a human. Yet she saw the way her daughter looked at him, like he was more than protector, more than savior, like he was family. The hall boiled with whispers again. Some demanded his death, some wanted proof, some feared the truth. But deep inside, the queen feared something else. What if this human held more than her daughter's trust? What if he held the power to change how the galaxy saw humans and her empire? The human stood still, silent now, as if waiting for judgment. The princess held him tightly, refusing to let go. The queen's voice broke the storm. "This is not the end, human," she said coldly. "This is only the beginning. You will not leave my sight until I know the truth." The guard stepped closer, surrounding him but not daring to strike. The hall's tension grew heavier, pressing on every chest like stone. The human's calm eyes met the queen's once more. And for the first time in many years, she felt something she had not known since the Great Wars. Uncertainty. The hidden past. The human was escorted through winding halls of black stone, guarded on all sides. The queen's command still echoed in his ears. "You will not leave my sight until I know the truth." They brought him into a chamber, lit with pale blue fire. Strange alien runes glowed on the walls, and the air carried a low hum of energy. This was no ordinary room. It was a place of judgment. The queen entered, her long robe trailing behind her. Her golden eyes burned with both fury and fear. The princess tried to follow, but the guards held her back. Her cries, "Don't hurt him!" cut through the silence, but the heavy doors closed, locking her out. The queen stood across from the human. "Speak, human," she said coldly. "Tell me everything. If you lie, these walls will expose you." The human looked around. He felt the hum of the runes pressing into his chest. He could tell the queen was not bluffing. This chamber was built to reveal truth, to strip away falsehood. Slowly, he began. "It was years ago. The border war raged across your empire's edge. My squad was sent on a mission, but we were scattered after an ambush. I found a small escape pod among the wreckage. Inside was a child." The queen's eyes narrowed. "My daughter?" "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "She was weak, hungry, and afraid. I gave her food from my rations. I kept her hidden from soldiers who would have killed her. I carried her through wastelands where death waited at every corner. I told her stories of Earth so she would not cry at night." The queen's hands tightened on her robe. Every word twisted her heart, for it matched the lost days when her daughter vanished. But she did not let herself soften. "You expect me to believe a human soldier would risk himself for a child of his enemy?" she asked, her voice sharp. The human's jaw tightened. "I did not see an enemy. I saw a child. That is enough for my kind." The queen stepped closer, her golden eyes glowing in the chamber's fire. "You do not understand. If the nobles hear this, they will brand her unfit to rule. They will call her bond with you a stain on her blood. My throne itself may fall." The human met her gaze, unshaken. "Then ask yourself, Queen, why does she remember me? Why does she call me father, even when she has you?" The words struck harder than any blade. The queen's breath caught, her face pale. The chamber grew colder. The runes flared, reacting to the truth in his words. She could no longer deny Bershidin. Her daughter's bond with this human was real, carved deep by survival, by care, by trust. But before she could speak, a sudden noise broke the moment. The chamber doors shook as voices cried from outside. A captain of the guard rushed in, bowing low. "My queen, forgive the interruption. Word has spread. The nobles know the human is here. They demand his execution. They say he has bewitched the princess." The queen's fury burned. Her empire was already stirring like a nest of hornets. If she killed the human, the truth might die with him, but her daughter would never forgive her. If she spared him, whispers of weakness would spread through every star system under her rule. The human stood calm, but his eyes watched the queen carefully. He knew she was cornered, trapped between duty and truth. Then the captain spoke again, his voice trembling. "There is more. A messenger ship has arrived from the outer rim. An old enemy moves toward us. They claim to have proof that the human carries secrets of our empire. They say he is not just a soldier, he is the key to something far greater. The queen's heart thundered. She turned to the human sharply. "What is this?" she demanded. "What do they mean?" The human's silence was heavier than words. His eyes dropped for the first time, as if he carried a burden he had hoped never to reveal. The queen stepped closer, her voice low, dangerous. "What are you hiding, human?" The runes flickered violently, reacting to his hesitation. The air grew tense, every flame in the chamber stretching tall as if waiting for the answer. Finally he spoke, his voice heavy. "I saved your daughter. That is the truth. But what I found with her, what I carry still, is something your empire buried long ago, something the galaxy was never meant to know." The queen's blood ran cold. Before she could demand more, the chamber doors burst open again. The princess slipped inside, her face pale with fear. She ran to the human, clutching his hand. "Don't tell them," she whispered. "Don't tell anyone. They'll kill you. They'll kill me too." The queen stared at them both, her chest tight. For the first time she felt a shadow of doubt in her throne, in her empire, in the secrets her ancestors had buried. The human's words hung in the air like a blade, something the galaxy was never meant to know. The queen's suspicion. The council chamber roared with voices. Nobles, generals, and high priests crowded the circle, their alien faces twisted with fear and anger. At the center stood the human, still calm, still silent, while the princess refused to release his hand. "Witchcraft," one noble spat. "He poisons her mind. No alien child should call a human father." "He hides something," another shouted. "If we let him live, rebellion will spread across the stars." The queen raised her hand. The chamber fell silent, though whispers still crawled like snakes in the dark. She sat on her throne, her eyes glowing gold as fire. But deep inside, doubt burned her sharper than any blade. Her daughter's eyes begged her to protect him. Her nobles demanded his death. The galaxy itself seemed to lean forward, waiting to see what she would do. The queen spoke slowly. "You all fear what you do not understand. I will test the human. If he lies, he dies." Gasps filled the air. The princess clutched the human tighter, but he only gave her a small nod, calm as ever. The queen rose and descended the steps, her robe dragging like a shadow. She faced the human directly, her voice low but deadly. "You claim you saved her. You claim you carry a truth hidden from the galaxy. Then answer me. Where was she when you found her? What did she say on her first night in your care?" The council leaned in. The princess held her breath. The human closed his eyes for a moment, then spoke softly. "She was trapped in the ruins of an old fortress. She would not eat at first, even when I gave her rations. She thought that I would poison her. That night she whispered only one word in her sleep, 'Mother.'" The queen's body stiffened, her heart thrashed against her chest. No one in this chamber knew that secret. Only she did. Only the child. The nobles murmured louder now, some in shock, others in fear. The princess looked up at her mother, eyes wide as if to say, "You see? He speaks truth." But the queen's suspicion deepened, not lessened. "You know too much," she said coldly. "More than a soldier should, more than any outsider could. Tell me, human, what else did you find in those ruins?" The human's silence returned. His eyes lowered, and the flames in the chamber flickered violently, as if reacting to the weight of his unspoken words. The queen stepped closer, so near she could see the scar across his jaw, the weathering of battles fought on alien soil. "Answer me, now!" His voice came like stone dropped into water. "I found symbols, ancient ones, carved deep into the walls. They spoke of a power your ancestors hid, power meant never to be seen again. The child was not the only one lost there. She was left in the shadow of your empire's greatest secret." The chamber erupted. Nobles shouted in terror. Priests covered their faces. Generals demanded his head. The queen raised her voice, cutting them down with thunder. "Silence! She turned back to the human, her fury burning. "You dare claim knowledge of the forbidden texts? That place was sealed before even my birth. No living being should know what lies there." The human's eyes finally locked on hers, calm, unflinching. "And yet, your daughter was there." Her breath caught. She could no longer deny it. He spoke truth, but a truth so dangerous it could collapse her throne if revealed. The princess broke the silence, her voice trembling but fierce. "He is not lying. I remember the walls, the strange symbols. I remember the light. It hurt my eyes, but he held me close so I would not cry. I remember," the nobles recoiled in horror. The heir herself had spoken of the forbidden. One priest shouted, "This is blasphemy! The bloodline is tainted. She cannot rule." The princess's face crumpled in fear. The human stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. The queen's rage snapped. She drew her blade in one motion, pointing it at the human's throat. Her eyes burned like twin suns. "You stand there, a stranger, and you dare shield my daughter from me?" The human did not flinch. He stood tall, the edge of her blade almost touching his skin. "I do not shield her from you," he said calmly. "I shield her from those who would twist this truth to destroy her, even if they are in this room." The queen froze. His words sliced deeper than her blade ever could. The nobles hissed and snarled, demanding blood, demanding silence, but the queen lowered her weapon slowly, her hands trembling, because deep in her heart she knew he was right. The danger was not only the human, the danger was her own council, her own empire, ready to tear itself apart if the truth spread. She turned sharply, shouting, "Enough! No more words! The council is dismissed." The nobles protested, but her fury silenced them. One by one they withdrew, though their glares promised betrayal. When the chamber was empty, only the queen, her daughter, and the human remained. The flames dimmed, shadows deepening across the walls. The queen whispered, her voice breaking for the first time in years. "Human, what exactly did you see in those ruins? What did my ancestors hide?" The human looked at her, his eyes carrying a weight older than war, older than empires. His answer was low, but each word fell like thunder. "I saw the truth your people fear most. Humanity was never meant to be outsiders. We were there, from the beginning." The threat within. The palace no longer felt safe. Rumors spread like fire across the empire. Every corner of the capital whispered the same forbidden tale. The princess called a human father. Nobles twisted the story, priests cursed it as blasphemy, and generals whispered of betrayal. The empire's unity began to crack. Some called for the queen's removal. Others demanded the human's execution before rebellion could ignite. The queen stood at the center of this storm, her throne suddenly fragile. But danger was not only inside her walls. That night, a fleet slipped out of the void, ships bearing the banners of an old enemy. They moved fast, faster than expected, and their target was clear, the capital itself. Spies had carried the whispers. The enemy smelled weakness, and they came to strike while the queen's empire tore itself apart. A captain of the guard rushed into the war chamber, his voice sharp with panic. "My queen, the Koran fleet advances. They carry weapons that can shatter cities. They will be here by dawn." The council panicked. Nobles cried for escape. Priests demanded prayers. Generals argued over failed defenses. The palace shook with fear. And through it all, the human stood silent at the chamber's edge, his eyes steady. Finally, his voice cut through the chaos. "Your walls will not hold them. Your fleet cannot outlast them. You are outmatched." The queen snapped at him, fury rising. "And you, what would you know of war against them?" The human stepped forward, his presence commanding the chamber. "I know because I fought them before. I watched them slaughter colonies. I know their ships, their weapons, their weaknesses." The queen's generals laughed bitterly. "A human dares claim to outthink us? Your kind are but scavengers of war." The human's jaw tightened. "And yet, we survive wars no one else dares fight. While you calculate, we bleed. While you hesitate, we endure." The princess leapt to her feet. Listen to him. He saved me when all others failed. He knows what must be done." The chamber froze. The princess's voice carried a fire never heard before. She was no longer a silent child. She was the heir, defending the human as if defending her very soul. The queen's heart clenched. She saw her council split before her eyes. Half wanted the human dead. Half began to fear that without him they might lose everything. But then the human spoke again, his voice calm but edged with iron. "I do not seek your throne. I do not seek your crown. But if you want your daughter to live, if you want your empire to stand, you must trust me, for I know something you do not." The queen's eyes narrowed. "And what is that?" The human leaned forward, his voice low. "Their fleet carries weapons they should not have. Weapons from the ruins where I found your daughter. They are using your empire's buried secrets against you." The queen's blood turned cold. The forbidden truth again. The very thing she had tried to bury now returned in the hands of her enemies. The generals shouted in outrage. The priests collapsed in fear. The council screamed betrayal. But the human's voice silenced them all. "You cannot win this fight the way you always have. But humans, we fight differently. We fight dirty. We fight to end wars, not to prolong them. Let me lead a strike team. Let me show you what it means to fight as we do, or your empire will burn before dawn." The queen stared at him. Every instinct told her to kill him. Every fear told her to silence him. And yet, she remembered her daughter's face in those lost days, alive only because of him. She remembered the way he faced her blade without fear, and now she saw the truth. If she rejected him, she would lose more than a throne. She would lose her child. She would lose her people. The queen spoke, her voice trembling with the weight of her decision. "If you fail, human, your death will be slow. But if you succeed—" She turned to her council, her voice like thunder. "Then let it be known that on this day the fate of our empire rests in the hands of a human." Gasps shook the chamber. Nobles paled. Generals cursed. Priests whispered in dread. But the human only nodded, calm as ever. "Then prepare your fleet. At dawn, we strike." The princess gripped his hand tightly, her eyes shining with both fear and pride. The queen looked at them both, her daughter and the human standing side by side, and for the first time in her reign, she felt the ground beneath her throne shift, not because of rebellion, not because of enemies, but because of him. And deep inside, a voice whispered what she feared most. What if this human is not just her daughter's savior, but the beginning of something far greater than my empire can control? The father's answer. The night sky burned with enemy fire. The Koran fleet had arrived, their massive warships blotting out the stars. Red beams lanced across the capital's defenses, tearing through shields like paper. Alarm screamed through the palace. Citizens huddled in fear as the ground shook beneath the first strikes. The queen stood in her war chamber, her generals frantic, her nobles fleeing, her priests whispering of doom. And there, at the center of it all, stood the human, calm, steady, his eyes locked on the chaos outside. He turned to her. "Your people cannot win this fight by waiting. They will break your walls and slaughter your cities. But if we strike first, we can end this before dawn." The queen's generals roared in protest. "Madness, a suicidal strike. He seeks to lead us into death. Kill him before he destroys us all." But the princess silenced them with a single cry. "If he dies, then I die too." Her words cut sharper than any blade. The chamber froze. Even the queen's heart trembled at her daughter's defiance. The human placed a hand on the princess's shoulder, steadying her. He faced the queen again, his voice like iron. "Decide now, queen. Trust me, or watch your empire fall." The queen's golden eyes burned with fire. For years she had ruled with certainty, but now every certainty shattered. She saw her empire cracking under fear, saw her council divided, saw her child clinging to a human instead of her. And still, she whispered the words she never thought she would say. "Lead them. The fleet is yours." The strike began at dawn. The human stood at the head of a small warship, a blade of steel cutting through the void. The princess stood beside him, refusing to be left behind. Alien pilots, unsure and afraid, followed his command, their eyes watching the human with a mix of disbelief and fear. He pointed to the enemy's formation on the screen. They fight in order, in discipline. That is their strength, but it is also their weakness. We fight with chaos. We strike where they do not expect. Follow me, and we'll tear out their heart. The ships roared into battle. The first clash was brutal. The Koran warships unleashed storms of fire, expecting the humans and aliens to break, to scatter. But the humans' fleet darted and twisted like hunters, slipping through their nets, striking at their blind spots. One enemy cruiser exploded in a burst of flame, then another. The alien soldiers gasped in shock. They had never seen such reckless, daring tactics. "Is this madness or genius?" one captain whispered. The princess's voice rang out across the comms, strong and proud. "This is how humans fight. Do not fear chaos. Become it." Her courage lit fire in their hearts. The fleet surged forward with renewed strength, striking faster, harder, breaking the enemy line. But the enemy's flagship loomed ahead, massive and glowing with forbidden power, the very weapons pulled from the ruins where the princess was once lost. Its cannons charged, aimed not at the fleet, but at the capital itself. The queen's voice crackled through the comms. "If they fire, the city will burn. Stop them at any cost." The human's eyes narrowed. He knew what had to be done. "Then we end this now." He turned to the princess. "Stay with the fleet. Lead them if I fall." Her grip tightened on his arm, her eyes wet with fear. "No. You promised you wouldn't leave me again." For the first time, the human's face softened. He placed a hand against her cheek. "I promised I would protect you. And sometimes protection means sacrifice." He stepped away before she could stop him, striding to the drop bay. Alone. Determined. The human launched himself from the warship in a single pod, streaking through fire toward the enemy flagship. Beams tore past him, explosions shook the void, but his pod slammed into the flagship's hull. He emerged with nothing but a rifle, a blade, and his will. The corridors were filled with alien soldiers, but he fought like a storm. Every strike was precise, every move brutal. He cut through their lines, moving deeper, driven by more than survival, driven by the bond of a child who had once called him father. Finally, he reached the core chamber. The forbidden weapon pulsed with sick light, ready to fire. He set charges, his hands steady even as alarms screamed. Through the comms, the queen's voice broke through. "Human, if you detonate that, you will die with them." He answered quietly. "Better me than your people. Better me than her." The princess's cry followed, her voice cracking with pain. "Don't leave me, please. You are my father." His hands froze. For a moment he closed his eyes. Then he whispered into the comms, words for her, words that shook even the queen's heart. "I was never your blood, but when no one else cared, I did. That is what makes me your father." He triggered the charges. The sky lit with fire. The enemy flagship shattered, torn apart from within. The forbidden weapon was destroyed before it could fire. The enemy fleet broke and scum. It turned, their strength gone. The human ship never returned. In the palace, the queen stood on her balcony watching the enemy retreat. Her empire was saved, but her chest ached with a weight she could not speak. The princess wept in silence, clutching the human scarf in her hands. And then, for the first time in her reign, the queen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, not as ruler, but as mother. Her voice was quiet, heavy with grief. "You were right. He was your father, not by blood, but by choice." The galaxy would remember the battle. The empire would rebuild. But in the heart of the queen, the question she once asked now carried its answer. "Why does my daughter call you father?" Because when no one else cared, he did.